So there aren't really a lot of hard battles in the Pokemon games. Most of them are fairly easy, especially if you design your team properly. However, there are a handful of really tough opponents in the Pokemon games, and a common thread is a lot of them happen to be female. But who is the toughest female throughout the first 4 generations of Pokemon? Why only the first 4? Because this video would be a little too long if I did all 8 generations. So we're going to stick with the first 4 generations today and decide who really is the strongest female in Pokemon. Well, the first half of it, anyway. Starting out with Generation 1, I have to go with Sabrina. Sabrina is almost unbeatable in Generation 1. So, for those of you who don't know the crazy amount of stupidity that the Psychic type was in Generation 1, well, you guys who play Pokemon nowadays know that Psychic is weak to Ghost. And that makes sense. I mean, it's always been like that, right? Well, not in Generation 1. In Generation 1, Ghost wasn't just not super effective, Psychic was completely immune to it. And it wasn't even supposed to be like that. It was supposed to be weak to Ghost. In fact, one of the NPCs in the game tells you to use Ghost type against Sabrina. But she's immune to it. And even if Sabrina's Pokemon weren't immune to the Ghost typing, the only Ghost type in Generation 1 is the Ghastly line, who are all part poison, meaning all of them are weak to Psychic. On top of the fact that the Dark type just didn't exist yet, and there were no Dark type moves, so the only way to get Stab's super effective damage off against Sabrina was with a Bug type Pokemon. The Bug type was horrendous in Gen 1. The only 2 really good Bug types, Pinsir and Scyther, literally learn 0 Bug type moves in Generation 1. In fact, the best Bug type move, which still is kinda garbage, can only be learned by Beedrill. But I hear you say, well, just train up a Beedrill then. There's one problem with that. Beedrill is a bug poison type, which means Beedrill is weak to Psychic! And on top of that, it's not that great a Pokemon. All of Sabrina's Pokemon will likely outspeed your Beedrill and OHKO it with Stab's super effective Psychic moves. There was literally no possible way of getting super effective damage off against Sabrina unless you massively over-leveled your Beedrill. I'm talking you walked in there with like a level 70 Beedrill to take on her level 40 Pokemon. That's how bad the Bug type is and how stupidly overpowered the Psychic type is. Also, keep in mind, the Psychic type are known for speed and special attack. In Generation 1, Special was one stat, meaning that 135 special attack that Alakazam sports today was also his special defense back then. You couldn't even use your most powerful special attackers to even damage her. And who was likely your most powerful special attacker? Your freaking starter! All 3 starters are special attackers. And I hear you say, but the flying type is physical, Charizard should do fine. But in Generation 1, Charizard learned no flying moves. It was all special. Sabrina outright cancels out any chance of you using super effective moves. She renders your strongest Pokemon, your starter, almost completely useless. Sabrina was so overpowered in Generation 1 that it's a wonder how Game Freak even allowed her to be that strong. And to top it all off, remember how I said that Psychic types are known for their special and their speed? Well, in Generation 1, critical hits were based off of your base speed. Alakazam and Kadabra have really high base speed, which means they critically hit around 25% of the time. 1 in every 4 attacks that those Pokemon use are likely to be a critical hit. There was no beating Sabrina without a dedicated strategy or just over-leveling. It was so mind-boggling how tough Sabrina was, and it makes me wonder how the hell Koga got to be an Elite Four member in Gen 2 and not Sabrina. But speaking of Generation 2, I think anyone who's played the Johto games can agree with me. Whitney is definitely the hardest female in that game. Now, her Clefairy is pretty standard, there's really nothing to talk about there, but that Miltank. Oh boy, that Miltank. It was just that, a tank, and I mean, the base stat total of Miltank was genuinely higher than any Pokemon that you would be using at that time, on top of the fact that even if you tried to use really good Pokemon like your starter, if you picked Cyndaquil as your starter, you were outright screwed fighting Whitney because that thing knows rollouts, which is super effective against Cyndaquil. So if you picked Cyndaquil, your starter is pretty much worthless in that fight, on top of the fact that it has Milk Drink, a move that restores your health by 50% every single time it's used. You couldn't damage it, but on top of that, it would OHKO every one of your because it was far too powerful to be being used that early on in the game. Miltank is easily one of the most traumatizing things about playing Generation 2. It's one of the things that make you want to chuck your Game Boy Color at the freaking wall. I mean, I hated fighting her. I hate it. Especially since I picked Cyndaquil. Cyndaquil is actually the best starter for the Johto region because, believe it or not, Cyndaquil is actually super effective against over half of the Johto region, with Chikorita being weak against over half of it, and Feraligatr being, well, Totodile, being about neutral against most of it, super effective against some of it. So, there's a little fun fact for you. But yeah, Whitney and her Miltank easily deserve to be in the conversation of most powerful female trainers. She may only have one Pokemon that's a threat, but that one Pokemon is a huge threat. Up next, we have Generation 3, the Hoenn region, and we're going to be talking about Winona. Winona is very, very infamous for being able to sweep teams with her Altaria. Altaria isn't that big a threat until it starts using those Dragon Dances. Once it uses about 2 of them, it can easily sweep an entire team. It even knows Earthquake, which is a very powerful move, and probably super effective against at least one of your Pokemon. So, I can't really say that she's as potent as Whitney or Sabrina, and if you've played any of the Gen 3 games before, you likely are prepared for it, but if you've never played through Ruby, Sapphire, or Emerald, Altaria will definitely give you some issues. And the Skarmory will probably catch you as well, being a Steel type. Steel resists almost everything, and if you picked anything but Torchic as your starter, it's gonna resist anything your starter can do. So, and even if you did pick Torchic, Altaria also resists everything that Torchic can do, both any fire or fighting type that Combusken or Blaziken can do. So, yeah, pretty much all starters are pretty not usable against Winona, aren't they? It's a very common theme that I've seen here, but there's not really much to say about her. She's hard, but only if you've never fought her before. And finally, we go up to Generation 4, Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. And I think you all saw this coming. Her music's been playing in the background this entire time. It's the Sinnoh champion, Cynthia. Cynthia is, oh my god, she's strong. You want to know how strong? So, I know a lot of people have likely only ever played either Diamond, Pearl, or Platinum. A lot of people don't usually play both versions or all 3 versions of a game. I have. And I can tell you this, for people who haven't played both versions, Cynthia got nerfed in Platinum. Yes, Cynthia's Diamond and Pearl team was so strong that Game Freak felt the need to nerf her in Platinum. They replaced her Gastrodon with a Togekiss, changed up pretty much her entire team's moveset to make it worse than it was in Diamond and Pearl, and lowered all of the levels. If that doesn't scream nerf, I don't know what does. And the biggest problems were the fact that her team was pretty solid. The very first Pokemon she throws out is a Ghost Dark type, which up until I believe Generation 5 had no weaknesses. The Dark type is only weak to the Fighting type, and Ghost is immune to the Fighting type, and at the time, Ghost was only weak to Dark, and Dark resists Dark, meaning it took neutral damage from it. Little note, I completely forgot that Dark was weak to Bug and Ghost was weak to Ghost, but Dark resists Ghost, so it takes neutral damage from that, and the Bug type was still garbage, so yeah. So there was literally, at least with Sabrina in Gen 1, you could hit her with super effective damage with Beedrill. It was a possibility. In Diamond and Pearl and Platinum, it was actually impossible to hit Cynthia's first Pokemon with super effective damage. On top of the fact that her Garchomp only has one weakness, and that's the Dragon type. And you want to know what's crazy about the Dragon type? Only one type resists the Dragon type, and that's Steel. Oh wait, she has a Lucario. So if you were thinking about bringing your own Dragon type to take care of her ace Garchomp, think again, because Lucario will resist anything your Dragon will do. Not only is her team very good type-wise, but a lot of her team actually covers each other's weaknesses. And it's all around a pretty solid gameplay team. Competitively, not so much, but in terms of an actual playthrough, Cynthia has a near perfect team, and it's kind of amazing if I'm being honest with you. Now, her Platinum team is a bit worse, so in order to make it fair, I will be looking at everyone's first appearances. So we will not be looking at any of the third series games, such as Yellow, Crystal, Emerald, and Platinum. The reason for that is a lot of things are different in the third games, and whereas Cynthia got weaker in the third game, Sabrina technically got stronger, so it wouldn't be fair, honestly. So that's the 4 hardest female battles in the first 4 generations of Pokemon. If I'm being honest with you, Winona pretty much disqualified immediately because, again, the Altaria is only really difficult if you're not prepared for it. If you've played the game a couple times, you're fully aware of what her Altaria can do, and you can pretty much sweep right through her team. Whitney is annoying, but there's only one Pokemon that is annoying. And if you can just get the in-game trade Machop, it pretty much solves your problem of not really being able to damage her. So at the end of it, it comes down to Generation 1 Sabrina and Generation 4 Cynthia. Blue and Red's Sabrina versus Diamond and Pearl's Cynthia. And I've got to be honest with you, I think I'm going to give the edge to Sabrina. Sabrina is just so outrageously strong in Generation 1 that I don't think any boss in any Pokemon game will ever come close to being as difficult as Sabrina was, simply because of being a Psychic-type gym leader in the Kanto region in Generation 1, where she effectively had no weaknesses because the Bug-type sucked, the Dark-type didn't exist, and the Ghost-type was glitched. And even if you did have the Ghost-type weakness, there was only one Ghost-type, and it was part poison, meaning it was being hit with super effective moves as well. So there was no true way to prepare for Sabrina. And because she's only around halfway through the game, well, slightly past halfway, and Cynthia is the final battle, you have a much bigger variety of Pokemon to use for Cynthia to be able to prepare for her better. Sabrina, you don't even know what you're in for by that point. Cynthia, she's the champion. You know this is going to be a hard battle. You've already prepared your team for a hard battle. You don't just expect Sabrina to be the hardest Kanto fight, yet she is. So because of that, I have to give the edge to Sabrina. If we were talking about Generation 3 Fire Red and Leaf Green Sabrina, then I would give the edge to Cynthia. The reason for that is, 1, the ghost type weakness is there. 2, the dark typing is there. Even though Kanto doesn't have any dark type Pokemon, there are dark type moves, so you can still get super effective damage. It may not be stab super effective, but it's still super effective damage nonetheless. So Sabrina does definitely get worse in her Generation 3 appearance. Whereas Cynthia, well, we're still just talking about Generation 4 Cynthia, and if we're being honest, Cynthia's Generation 5 appearance is even better than her Generation 4, so either way, Cynthia still wins that. But in terms of their very first appearances, Sabrina does have the edge over Cynthia. So I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Tell me who you personally think the hardest battle was. Which one of these 4 women gave you the hardest time in your Pokemon playthrough? And I will see all of you inmates back here at the Asylum for the next video. Peace.